You're never supposed to start like this, but I'm going to. The Lord gave us a couple of choices. God came along, and he says, as we actually find in the beginning of this week's portion that we read, some of it, not all of it. God says, I place before you the following options. Ready? Here we go. I place before you. All right, we're not going to write today. He says, I place before you, we're going to try this one. I place before you, there we go. I place before you es hachayim v'es hatov. And we'll throw in one more, the idea of bracha. The Lord says, in a number of different places, he says, I'm going to give you chayim. That's one option. Another option that he gives, I'm going to translate in a moment, is the idea of mavet, tov and ra, bracha and klala. Okay, these are the three different options that we have. I think maybe we did this together. I'm not sure. You just look familiar with this. But anyway, it goes like this. God says, I give you chayim, which is life. Tov, which is, anyone, what's tov? Good. What's bracha? Blessing. Excelente. Right? So the Lord gives us, these are the options we got on the table. Chayim is life. Maves is death. On the other hand, we'll give you tov, which is good, ra, which is bad. Bracha, which is blessing, and guess what klala means? Very good. These are the options that God sets before you, for all of us. And he says, and by the way, ubacharta b'chaim. In case you didn't know which one to choose, God helps us out. He says, you should choose life. Everybody got it? Everybody got it? Is this clear? Okay, so we got life, death, good, bad, blessing, curse. Oh, and by the way, choose life. Oh, life. Oh, life. Oh, life. I want you to choose life. Now, here's a question. If these are our options, life, good, and blessing, do we really need to be told which ones to choose? Is it a question in our mind which one we should choose? That's question number one. Question number two, and if it is a question, then why does God only tell us choose life? What about good and what about blessing? Does everybody hear is this a clear question? Either don't tell me, I got it. Yeah, if I had to ask you, would you like life or death? Please get this right. Please, it's not going to look good for me otherwise. Well, actually, I've been going through rough patches. I don't want to know, right? The idea is, I charge a lot for that, and we'll do it after. But the idea is, what do we got? Yeah, you got life and death. Do I need to ask you, or is it clear? Okay, that's good. I'm not asking which one, but it's clear. Okay. The idea is now you got good and bad. Is that a question? Right? Do you know which one you want? Okay, and what about blessing and curse? Do you know which one? Okay, so you know all of them, right? So God says, I'll give you the options. You got this or that, this or that, this or that. He should have left it at that as a question. And then, you're going to know which one to choose, right? But then he goes out of his way and says, oh, and by the way, just in case you don't know, choose life. If you're already telling me things that are pretty much obvious, then why don't you also tell me choose good? Why don't you also tell me choose blessing? Is the question clear? See? Claro? Okay, what's the answer? Good. That is one answer. Very good answer. Now, what's the answer to the question about this? Not only is it clear, what's the answer to the question? Yeah. In other words, okay, interesting. Is that true? No. Okay, moving along. Yeah, what do you say?
I was just say, it's obvious to choose life because you can't experience the others if you're not alive.
Well, my question then, the second one was, if it's obvious, why did God need to tell us?
I'm going to have to defer to the audience.
That's right, okay. Want to phone a friend, okay? All right, let's take a look. Okay, so let's take a look at from another idea. You bring out a very beautiful concept. There happens to be that not only the fact that God tells us to choose life is a question of itself, but the fact that God told us to choose life kind of messes up our life a little bit. What I mean by that is that the full phrase that God says is ubacharta b'chaim, which means choose life. Choose life. The full phrase is choose life, to choose life. Now, you might ask, well, why does God need to tell me that? Which I am asking. But another point within that, when he's saying choose life, means that you have something that a lot of people don't think they have. What is it? Choice. You have something called choice. Now, why do I say that messes things up? Because once you have choice, now you have something called responsibility. Does that make sense? If you had no choices, then you have no responsibility because you did whatever you had. You didn't have a choice. Now, there's all different forms of a person saying I didn't have a choice. Someone goes and says, rob the bank or I'll kill you. Do you have a choice? Technically, you do, right? Either you rob the bank, and if you don't, they'll kill you, but it's your choice to be killed or not, to allow them to kill you, right? Understand? But you have choice. What happens if somebody takes your hand and goes and pushes it on somebody else? Somebody pushes you into somebody else. Did you have a choice there? Then you didn't have any choice. Do you have accountability if you had no choice? Well, let me ask you differently. Should you have accountability if you have no choice? No. Okay, good. That makes okay. Everyone's like in America, they're like, I don't know. You're accountable for everything, you know? But it was my fault. I don't care. You're going to jail. The bottom line is what we have is that we have choice. Once we have choice, on the one hand, wow, it's wonderful. I can choose whatever I like. On the other hand, now you is responsible. And that is if you do the wrong choice, you're going down. Okay, so understand this idea, but now here comes a question. So that's number one. Okay, choose life. But why do you need to tell me to choose life? I know to choose life, don't I? So let's work it out. Here we go. Being that no one is responding, I will now do it. Here we go. Good and blessing. Let's start with blessing. Is it a choice to have blessing? Who said that? Chava? What's your name? Devorah. Is it a choice? How so? So do you have a choice to have blessing? Okay, but then you're telling me that blessing is more of an outcome of something else. Is that correct? Or is blessing is not it itself? And is it not true that there are times that people will try to get blessing, but it won't work out? And other people maybe will not try, but it will work out? Sadik v'rala, Rasha v'tovla, right? Bad things happen to good people, good things happening to bad people. In other words, blessing is not really a choice as much as it's an outgrowth of something else. I'm so blessed. Maybe you can look at it as a perspective. In other words, how do you look at it? Do you see yourself as blessed? Do you not? But the bottom line of what I'm pointing out with blessing is that blessing is not a choice. Blessing and curse is something which occurs because of something else. Now you might say, well, then that other thing is what's causing it, but my point is it's not direct. Does everybody get that idea? That's number one. And number two is everybody wants blessing. Nobody wants curse. Is that right? So if everybody wants blessing and nobody wants curse, you don't need to even tell me about that. That's obvious. Number one, it's obvious. Let's flip it. And number two is, it's not really my choice anyway. It's more of an outcome. If God blesses me, great. And if he doesn't, then he doesn't. And if you don't believe in God, so then if the universe blesses me, great. And if not, then... And if you don't believe in universe, so if it just happens, then great. And if not, then just great. Okay, that's this idea. Okay, that is blessing. What about good? Is there anyone that wants to do bad? Ultimately. Yeah. Well, we have, I'm going to try to hopefully go with the norm. And when I say hopefully, I mean that in many ways because I don't know what the norm is anymore, right? But the idea is what the norm means, what most people do or not. But I mean, generally speaking, I'm not talking about people that are, and by the way, I am even talking about that. There was a interview done with Jeffrey Dahmer. He was a very nice young man. And he loved other people tremendously. He loved to have them for dinner, Hannibal Lecter style. And Jeffrey Dahmer, did some pretty sick things. And one of the things he said himself was, I know I shouldn't do this, I just can't help myself. In other words, even a sociopath, even someone or whatever, do they understand of which one should be chosen? Do they know which one to do, good or bad? I would venture to say everybody wants to do good. The question is, what's the definition of good, right? And that's a whole other discussion, right? Hitler, wanted to do good, right? When Hitler wanted to go ahead and he wanted to, create the Aryan race, even though he himself was quite the opposite of that. So he was doing a good thing for mankind in his mind. Does that make sense? No, but it did to him. Yeah, and hopefully not to you. Everyone's like, yes. You are nodding, so I was just following orders. Sounds familiar, right? The point is what? No, it's messed up. He's doing the wrong thing, but he considers it to be good. Everybody wants to do good. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to do bad. And even if they do, they understand that it's wrong. You can please argue with me if you disagree. Speak up, get up, stand up. Stand up for you, right? You got anything? Okay, so that's good. You don't need to tell me to get blessing because it's not even my choice and it's just an outside. And of course I want it. You don't tell me to do good. Okay, it's a question. What's good? What's not good? Etc. What about life? Do we all want life?
The norm.
Yeah, let's go with the norm. Yeah.
Not a suicide bomber.
Okay, not a suicide bomber. Well, they do want life, right? They want what they would consider exactly some eternal life of some sort. Whether they're right or wrong is up for debate for people who need to debate it, but it's not a debate here, it's pretty clear. But the idea is that when we get the idea of life and death, do we all want life? Let's think about it for a second. This is an extreme of suicide. That's an extreme. It's a big extreme. And there are people that do that. And there are many people, unfortunately, that do that. I'm not even talking about suicide bombers. I'm saying just people that, Robin Williams, right? And look at people that suffer and go through and they commit suicide. I mean, terrible things. And I'm not saying this facetiously in any way. I mean, I said to my wife, I feel strangely somewhat connected to Robin Williams for some reason. I just, whatever. You grow up, you hear about him all the time. It's just a thing. So it irked me. And I remember reading up for years that he suffered. He had trouble, whatever, especially getting divorced twice, as he used to joke, that he used to think it was called, when you get divorced, that you have to give all your money. And then he realized it said alimony, right? But turned it up being all of his money. It was like $30 million, but it's good for them. But okay, but anyway, the idea that we find is that people take their life. People take their life. Not everybody wants life. That's an extreme. I want to share with you, Chava, because you mentioned, of course, we want life, and for everyone else, that I think maybe we're not so far off. There's two different types of suicide. There's what's called, here in Israel, if you want to go ahead and if you want to go to the store, you want to buy something. So when you go to buy something at a store, so they ask you a question almost every time when you buy something. They ask you if you give a credit card. If you're paying cash, no, but if you give a credit card, they ask you. What do they ask? Okay, ID. They never ask ID. Nobody cares. But they ask what? Okay, no, come on. What do they ask? You buy a couch. You give a credit card. And they say, signature. Tell me, what? No. Pamachat. O tashlumim, right? Right? They ask you, do you want to pay it in one shot? Or do you want to do it into installments? That could be the way that this country works, is that people don't make money. So the idea is that when you go ahead and you want to buy something, it's all in tashlumim. It's all done in like installments, right? You could be buying a fridge. You could be buying a bag of milk. They'll ask you, pamachat tashlumim, which means installments. You can be buying a kid. It's not so legal, but we will talk about it after if anyone wants to. But the idea is what? Is that pamachat tashlumim. This is what they always ask, one time or installment. There's a one-time suicide. That's when somebody, God forbid, takes their life. Then there's something else that the Rosh Yeshiva of Eish Torah, blessed memory of Noah Weinberg, who passed away about 5 years ago, started the institution approximately 40 years ago, used to say, there's suicide and then there's death in the installment plan. What's death in the installment plan? It's where you waste 5 minutes here, you waste 10 minutes there. It's one of the saddest phrases. People want life more than anything, right? People get sick. They'll give their money and their time just to live. Then you watch a person who's healthy sitting by a television, watching some cooking show about lobsters that recovered from cancer and are pregnant with someone else's baby. Like some ridiculous show. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden it's like, Jerry, right? Some crazy thing. And you go to the person and you say, what are you doing? Like, what are you watching? And they're like, I'm just killing time. What does that mean when a person says I'm killing time? That means they are committing suicide for that particular amount of time. Do you understand that? That's an extreme way of saying it. The point is what? Death in the installment plan. I'll give you another situation which you probably are familiar with. Every household has a death button. They spelled it wrong, but you guys know they have that button. It's on almost every clock. The death button, you guys know that button? The snooze button. right? It's like you wake up and like, oh no, I want to die more. Right? And what happens? That's essentially what are we saying? Now I know that people say, well, you need energy for the day, so maybe snooze is for life. Maybe it's for life. Okay, maybe, yeah. But for everyone else who gets my point, the bottom line is, how many times do we just want to do nothing? Do we just want to be lazy? Do we just want to be dead, essentially? What is the idea when God says choose life? You don't need to say good or blessing. We know that. But life, not so clear. Every day of our lives, do we choose life? How many here can feel comfortable saying that they used their time properly over the past 4 hours? Great. If yes, great. I'm not coming to actually ask this. It's a rhetorical question. But think about it, right? Yo tengo una pregunta. Ojo aquí. How many people do we understand? Just think for a second. How many yesterday, of the 16 hours you were awake, probably average, 16 hours at least that we were awake, how much did we use productively? That we could say, I am proud to show to somebody else what I did with my day. Or how much did we just throw away? And we're giving life. We're giving life, right? It's an amazing thing. We're giving it and we chuck it. And we chuck it, and we chuck it. Very apropos this time of year, and you say, what, this time of year? The month we're in now is the month of Av. The month of Av. The month of Av. This is, the months of the Jewish year. The month of Av. This is the 5th month of the year. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av. I just read this past Shabbos. Maybe other people knew this. I never knew this before. I saw, what is Av? It's an acronym. Roshei Tevot. It's an acronym for what? Anyone know? It says Elul Ba. What's Elul Ba? Elul, the month of Elul. That's the month preceding the High Holy Days, right? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Judgment Day, 2014. We're talking about Elul Ba. What's Elul Ba? Elul is preparation for Rosh Hashanah, for the High Holy Days. Av is preparation for Elul. Tammuz is preparation for Av. Maybe, I don't know. But it's about everyone. Right, let's go back. What's Iyar? What's Sivan? Iyar, Nisan. But every month is something. It's all preparation. It's coming up soon. Judgment Day. Tavshin Ayin Hey. Tavshin Ayin Hey. It's coming up soon. 5775. 5775. And you know what the significance of 5775 is? I don't know either, but I'm sure it's something, yeah? Bottom line is what we have is that it's coming, right? The palindrome, that's what I was thinking also, right? But the bottom line, even though it doesn't work because the 5 has to be the other way, but the bottom line we find, it would be 1, 1, 1, 1, then we'd be good, unless you use the little line things in the bottom. But we find that people, it's coming soon. I want to tell you an amazing story I once heard. I'm going to say it differently than I heard. I'm just going to do something, and then I'll backtrack. My wife is from Montreal, Canada. I'm from New York, originally, Baruch Hashem. And I would frequent Montreal. I would go visit there often. And one way of getting there was there's a bus called the Hymen Bus. Is anybody familiar with such a thing? What's that? You know what? They call it the Chas Bus. It's a Hasidic company. And maybe I shouldn't be saying it on camera because it's a bit shady. But it's all funny. There's always a story when you go on this bus. Anyway, so it's about a 7-hour drive. And I get on the bus, and I see this guy. Right when we get on this bus, he looks a little off. You know some people, they just look off. No? Okay, so I do. Anyway, he looked a little off. And I'm looking at the guy, and all of a sudden he stands up, and he takes out of his pocket, he takes out a $10 bill. He pulls out a $10 bill. The last time I saw a $10 bill. Anyway, so he takes out a $10 bill. He opens up the window, and he throws it out the window. I was like, awesome. So I get off the bus, I take the money, and I got $10. What you got now? We start to drive. About 20 minutes later, the guy takes out another $10 bill, opens a window, throws it out. I'm like, driver, stop, right? But he doesn't stop, right? So we keep going. Every 20 to 30 minutes over this trip, the guy throws out either a $10, $20, or $50 bill. And I'm thinking, I just met this guy. This is crazy. I'm like, here's my number. Yeah, call me maybe if you want to throw out any more money, something like that. I'm thinking, this is like, what's this guy doing? We get to Montreal. At this point, right, we're talking about 12 times he threw out. We're talking about at least 120 if it's just tens. Yeah, and upwards of $200 to $300. We get there. I'm taking the stuff off the bus. The guy walks right over to me. I don't know who he is. Comes over to me. He's like, excuse me. I'm like, yes. He goes, can I borrow $10? I was like, are you nuts? And he said, yes. And the whole thing didn't happen, but it's a mushal, it's an analogy. You see, we come before God on Rosh Hashanah. What do we say? Zachreinu l'chaim, melech hafetz v'chaim, v'kosfeinu b'sefer ha'chaim, l'man chalukim chaim, v'korda devida. Melech hafetz amida. Because escribe en el libro de vida. Because say, remember us for life. Give us life. We want life. We want life. Do you believe in life after love, after love, after love? And we're like, we want life. And we go, we want life. And we go, life. And we go, God turns to us and goes, are you nuts? You just spent the last year throwing your life out the window. And when you want me to give you more? Does everybody hear this idea? How much do we take time? Forget a day, Cheshbon. That's scary. What about a week? Do an evaluation of your week. What about of the month? What about of the year? What have we accomplished? Do you ever find yourself at the end of a year saying, have I done anything this year? Saying, I have a New Year's resolution. This year I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then you find it to be identical to the resolution you made last year. Have we changed? Do we choose life? Therefore, God tells us, choose life. Don't you get it? Choose life. If you boil it down a little bit further, Rav Noach used to always talk about the idea about body and soul, that we're made up of two major components. That we have, on the one hand, we have what's called the soul, right? The soul is on the side of life. On the other hand, we have what's called the body. That's on the side of death. Now, why do I say it's on the side of death? Because the body by itself, without a soul, Adam, Yesodam, Afar, a person comes from the dirt and they go back to the dirt, right? Look at the effect of what a person goes, Marba, Basim, Abarima. He said, what are we? We're just a body. The body is what? It goes to the ground. It's done. It's done. The soul goes on and it continues. The body is all death. The soul is life. What do we affiliate ourselves with more? Do we consider ourselves a soul or do we consider ourselves a body? It's very simple to figure it out. Just take a look and see, how do we live our lives? I was once talking about this idea, and there was a guy who just came to Eish HaTorah. This is Eish HaTorah, by the way, welcome. This guy's like, oh, I thought this was jihad. No, this is Eish HaTorah. Right? So what happened is, this guy comes to me, his name is Chaim, actually. and Chaim comes to me and he says, after I told him this idea, are you a body or are you a soul? He goes, what's with this body-soul thing? Like, why do you got to change things and make it look, oh, it's so fancy because it's the 21st century? Whatever. What is body and soul? Just say, Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. You got the good inclination, you have the evil inclination, right? You guys know it's like these two angeles, right? These two angels on your shoulder. One of them has got like a halo, right? And you get the other one with like a pitchfork in the 16th century Christian. Okay, you got these two little things. I said the Yetzer Tov, the Yetzer Hara. You have these inclinations to do good, inclination to do bad. Why do you got to put it into body, soul? What's this whole idea of body, soul? I said to him, it makes it more real. It makes it more real. If I said to you, your evil inclination, watch out for it, it's going to get you, right? And the good one's going to help you. Okay, so it's esoteric, it's not so real. But if I told you, even though the soul is pretty esoteric, but if I told you the idea is, do you associate and affiliate with the body? Are you purely animalistic or are you a soul? Which one do you associate? It just makes it more down to earth and more real. He says to me, whatever. The next day he comes back, he walks into the room and he says to me, I'm waiting for like some silly joke about what I said. The first thing he says to me is, I hate you. I said, but at least you didn't say like some silly joke. You know, like, well, enlighten me. Why do you hate me? He said the night before, he was eating dinner with his wife, and they were eating chicken, el pollo loco. And as they were having their pollo, or as they say in, ¿cómo se dice? You say in French. Poulet. Right, poulet. Right, they're having their chicken. And it came down to that they both ate, they had enough, and there was one more piece of chicken on the tray. So they both eye it. No, they're just kidding. There's one more piece left. The wife is done. As usually, a wife is like, in my experience at least, my wife, like when she's full, she's full. When I'm full, I'm like, I'm hungry, right? You know? So what happens is she goes that, and there's one more piece. And the wife is like, whatever, she's cleaning up. And the husband's like looking at it, and he starts saying under his breath, he's like, am I a body or am I a soul? Am I a body or am I a soul? Right? Because if he's a body, then of course he's going to eat the chicken. Why not? He's a body, go for it. If he's a soul, so you ate enough to be able to sustain yourself, why would you eat more? Why would you do that? That's just fattening yourself up, just giving more area for the worms to eat you when you die, right? Beautiful Mishnah, which I quoted before, right? 3-1. So we have over here, I'm sorry, no, that's 2, 6, 2, 7. Marba. Anyway, the idea is that we find over here is what? He goes to my body. So his wife's like, what are you saying? He's like, nothing. All of a sudden he blurts out, I'm a body! And he grabs the chicken and he starts eating the chicken. And he comes back, so he goes, so I hate you. I said, great. Now it's real. And ask yourself throughout the day, do you buy little snacks all the time, Friedman? I'm Friedman. Yes. Right? Do you go ahead and do you sleep more than you need to, perhaps? Do you waste away watching television, or not television, because I know people don't watch television, YouTube. Right? Like when someone goes, I don't have a television. I don't have a television at home. You know what I'm saying? It's pasnish, no bread. I don't have a television. Really, you don't have a television? No. Just internet, which is television, movies, video games, everything. Yeah, everything is there. Right? Bottom line is like, are we a body or are we a soul? Which one are we, a body or a soul? Therefore, God says, I need to tell you, choose life. Choose a soul. The body constantly is trying to go down to the ground. That's what it's constantly doing. If you right now stopped what you are all doing, you don't realize what you're doing. You're doing it unconsciously. But if you stopped doing everything, what would happen? You would fall to the floor. The body wants to go down. The soul wants to go up. It just wants to get out of this world. It wants to connect with the creator of the world. That's its whole purpose here. It wants to have that struggle, and it's a constant back and forth. And it is the Yetzer and the Yetzer Tov. As Mesil Hashem says, it's a battle to the fore and to the rear. It's a constant battle in front of you, behind you, on the side. Anywhere you look, it's there. It's waiting for you. So the question is, do you look at yourself like a body or soul? Therefore, says the Torah, Ubacharta b'chaim. Choose life. Now, one might ask, why did God do this? My daughter actually asked me this question. She says to me, why, this is my second daughter. She just turned 23. So she said to me, I'm just kidding about it, she's 7.5, by the way. So I'm just kidding. I was like, oh my gosh, she looks so young. Anyway, so my 7.5-year-old, she asked me a question. She goes, if Hashem, God, wants us to do good, then why does he even give us, she didn't word it like this, but the ability to do bad? Like, why did he give? She said, like, why do we have a Yetzer Hara? You hear the question? If he wants us to do good, then why did he give us the ability to do bad? Then I said, it's a very good question. She goes, I know. You think I ask redundant, superfluous questions? What do you think, I'm extraneous? You think I'm just going to be ephemeral? I said, where did you learn these words? And then she said to me, I didn't learn them. You made them up in your head. And then I realized I was in my head. But the idea is what? She asked me, why did he give us the Yetzer Hara? Why did he give us the Tov? Why did he do such a thing? Why? What's the answer? We already answered it. Anyone know? If we don't have a Yetzer Hara, we don't have life. If you don't have an evil inclination, you don't have life. Do you realize how far that goes, what I said? It's not like, okay, you don't have you don't have a life. What's a person who's a prisoner? A person who's a slave? They don't have a life. If you don't have choice, you don't have life. You have to have the ability of either doing this one or that one. If I don't have it, I can't choose. That's one of the reasons why, an explanation that when Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, Hareini na kvodecha, show me your glory. God, show me yourself. And God says, Lo, anyone know, what does he say? It rhymes with Lo yir'uni adam v'chai. Anyone? Good. Lo yir'uni adam v'chai, right? A person can't see me and live. You can't see me and live. Now, one explanation is because you're just like, it's God, right? He's saying, like, you can't, it's... Another explanation, if that one wasn't clear, is that if you see God as clear as you see this marker, as clear as day, as the expression goes, let's say I'm saying the rain is gone, let's say, and you can see all obstacles in your way. If you see God clear, would you ever do the wrong thing? Would you? If you saw God clear as day, would you ever do the wrong thing? Think about it in terms of like this. Let me give you an analogy. I think I've given this analogy a number of times, so you could bust me up if you heard it before. Let's say for a moment, dame per segundo, tú y si en el carro, y yo manejando el carro, y el carro es carro. And we're driving along together. We're driving in a car, as opposed to driving in a non-car. And there's a cop, policía. He's behind us. And I see it right away, and you see it right away. We both see there's a cop behind me. And it's for 15 minutes I'm driving with the cop behind me the whole time. And then I pull over, not because he asked me to. I was very polite. I did it by myself. And put my hands, and he pulls off. And I turn to you and I say, aren't I a good driver? I'm a very safe driver, right? What would you say back to me?
I'm driving.
What? No, I'm driving. You're in the passenger seat. I'm driving. And for 15 minutes with the cop behind us, I drive very safely. And then I pull over and I say to you, aren't I a safe driver? What's the response? What do you say?
You're right.
What?
You're right.
What do you mean?
That's joking, yeah?
So how do you know? Am I or no? Am I a safe driver? What do you say?
Behind the cop you are.
Okay, good. So what's the answer? Am I a safe driver?
Sometimes.
Give me more. You don't know. You have no idea. Because there's a cop behind me the whole time. So who knows if I'm a safe driver? I'm not, by the way. But the idea is what? The bottom line is when there's a cop. So yeah, everyone deals a certain way. If God was with you in a way that you saw him, not through working on it and building it up, but through idea, which then you chose to get to that, but that he didn't give you that, he just showed himself to you, would you do the wrong thing ever? I'm going to tell you the answer for those who didn't get it. That's correct. No. You would always do the right thing. Lo ye'uni adam v'chai. You can't see me and live. You won't have a life because you won't have any choice. If you have no choice, you have no life. Everybody hear this idea? So why would God do it? He does it in a way that we go ahead and we have choice. Well, if God wants what's best for us, then why not just create us in heaven? Well, I got to put us through this world. Then comes a very famous Kabbalistic idea. Now that I said Kabbalistic, you'll all be with me. It says in Kabbalah. I don't know because I don't learn it. But there's an idea that is said of something called Nama Diksufa, the bread of shame. The bread of shame. Is anyone here into sports at all? Any sports? Do you play any sports? What do you play? Basketball and tennis. Which one are you better at? Equally good. Okay. So you're good at basketball, okay? You're on a basketball team. And for some reason, either it shouldn't be like an injury, but let's say some reason you're not able to play the season. Okay, something happens, you're on a team and you're not able to play for that season. And then they win the championship that season. You get a ring. You get a ring. They go around giving everyone a championship ring. How do you feel about that ring?
50 years from now, no one will know.
50 years from now, you're like, hey, I won, right? But how do you feel about that when they're going around interviewing everyone and they're all sweaty and you're like dressed?
I feel like I didn't win it.
And how do you feel? Do you feel like part of the whole thing?
No.
No, you feel outside, you feel almost embarrassed. Like you're interviewing me for having this ring?
I wouldn't feel it.
Yeah, it's a nice ring, yeah? But like, I didn't do anything for this. I don't deserve this. I didn't do anything, right? You understand? It's clear, it's understood that when a person doesn't earn something, so they don't feel any connection to it, it doesn't mean anything. Therefore, what God does is he puts us in this world where he gives us the ability to be able to earn it. He gives the ability, at least some sort of earning, we'll call it. Yeah.
So does that mean that if you don't, what if you just choose good every time? Does that mean you're not living?
No, absolutely not. Because what I mean is, it does not mean that. In other words, you are living, right? What do I mean by that? What I mean by this is that when you go ahead and you're choosing good, you always have a challenge. Everyone is challenged in their life on their own level. So just because you happen to win every time doesn't mean you didn't have a life. And you know yourself how difficult it is. Everybody has their challenges.
What if you're choosing good out of fear?
Yeah. Why is that a question? You're still living. You chose it.
Because you're just too afraid. You're not choosing good because you want to be good. You're choosing good because you're afraid to choose bad.
It's a lower level than doing it out of love, but it certainly is a high level. Because somebody who does that means that they're living with the reality that there's a God and that there is reward and punishment, that there is connection, that there is relationship, that it's all real. Ultimately, the goal is not to live with fear, not the goal. Although we did see very interesting, you bring it up in this past week's parsha, a beautiful pshat I saw from the Chafetz Chaim, that it says in the parsha that you should walk in God's ways and fear God. He uses the word yira. Now, yira can mean fear, and it can also mean awe. There's different types of yira. There's yiras ha'onesh and yiras ha'romamus, fear of punishment, and then what's known as romamus is the exaltedness of God. Just not, I'm scared of you because you're going to hurt me. Just I'm just, oh my goodness, blown away by your power and your might. How powerful, how amazing you are. Does everybody get the difference? When somebody goes and says, wow, this is awesome. Yeah? It's not that I'm scared per se, but I have a certain, we'll call it an element of fear. Then we have something called ahava, love. And then we have something called devekus. Devekus literally means like devek, means glue. Devekus means to cleave, to be attached to something. The highest level of connection with God is devekus, is to be, and that's really what we're all heading for. We all, the highest that we all want is devekus. What is devekus? It's at least going to the chinuch explanation, it's a constant ahava, right? It's ahava tamidi, right? That you're constantly connected to the idea. For more on that, the 6 consummate mitzvahs and how that works. But the idea we're saying is it works in stages. Yira, the pasuk says, walk in God's ways, fear God. A little bit later in the same parsha, this past week's parsha, it says, fear God, walk in His ways, love Him. A little bit later, love God, walk in His ways, be davuk to Him, be attached to Him. And the person says, how do I connect with the Almighty? How do I connect with the Infinite? The answer is, start following His, walk in His ways. Try to emulate God. When you begin to emulate God, that's when you start to get an understanding, a profound understanding of how much God does for us. Then you start to be blown away in an awe state. The more you do it, you can continue. It bridges, right? So it goes, walk in His ways, fear. Fear, walk in His ways, love. Love, walk in His ways, dvekus. It just builds. It continues and it builds, okay? So it is that in the base level, it's not the best thing, but it certainly is a beginning. Certainly is a beginning. Okay, so we understand Namadik Suf, in order not to get that, God gave us the highest level that we have is for us to be able to somewhat earn it. Therefore, He puts us in this world. And by the way, we have an amazing ability of learning from the soul. If you take the soul and we learn, let's do the opposite. You learn from the body, you can understand the soul. Let's say, for example, let's start with number one, a little bit of a vain example, the bathroom. Why do we go to the bathroom? Please don't answer this question. But the idea that we have is we go. What's the purpose? So we find that what do we do? What do we do? We have a body, and this body has stuff in it that needs to be gotten rid of. We need to get rid of some of the waste of the body. And we do that through, then why did God make it? Not only do we have to go to the bathroom, but either you'll excuse me or you won't for being too graphic. I'm not going to get too graphic, but why does it have to, let's call it, not smell so pleasant? Why does it have to be gross? Why can't it be like a fax machine? It's a piece of paper and you're good to go. Why does it have to be? In 2014, you don't even need noise. Just why does it have to be like this disgusting, gross thing? Because there's disgusting waste in the body they need to get rid of. You learn from that to the soul. What do we learn about? Something called tshuva. What's tshuva? Repentance. Our soul has accumulated some stuff that isn't nutritious. And we need to get rid of it. And it's disgusting. Sin, being further away from the source of the world, is gross. We got to get rid of it. That's called tshuva. We learn from the body to the soul. Okay, what else do we have? We eat. Why do we eat? Why don't we just pop pills? Please don't answer that either. Maybe we should talk about that. Back to life. Choose life. But why isn't that a person goes, why do we have food? What's the purpose of it? So one shot I just heard yesterday from my chavrus, my study partner, told me, quoting, I think Rav Yerucham, if I'm not mistaken, he says, this week's parasha, it says, and God will, chapter 8, verse 10, you will eat, you'll be satiated, and you'll bless. You will eat, you'll be satiated, and you'll bless. How can you remember it's chapter 8, verse 10? Chai, ches, yud, chai. That's how you live. Anyway, the point is, it says that God makes us eat, and then we bless Him. If God didn't give us food, then we might not ever come to recognize God and we never come to thank Him. And the whole purpose, says this of giving us the food in the first place, is that we can come to recognize God's existence, ultimately for our good, and that's for another class which maybe we'll go into. But the point is, why do we eat? We know that the body needs nutrients. So does the soul. We need some soul food. Soul food is what we call Torah. A person studies the words of the Torah, the books of the Lord. Okay, what about this one? This is a really cool one. Why do we have dreams? Why do we have dreams? What's the idea of a dream? So I'll tell it to you in a beautiful idea I read from Rabbi Dr. Akiva Tatz. I thought it was an amazing idea. Have you ever had a dream that was so real you could have swore it was real? Anyone? You had like that? Yeah, you wake up, and I won't go into detail, but the point is you thought it was real. Yeah? In my head, I remember when I was young, it was very scary. There was this mummy coming after me. It was not an English mother. It was a mummy. Like it was wrapped up and whatever, coming after me. And it's a whole thing. I could tell you another time. But the point is, like, it was so real. And when I woke up, my heart was pounding. And he had thrown me on the floor, and I woke up on the floor. I fell off my bed. It was a scary experience. It was so real. But then I woke up. What's dreams? Dreams is to teach you about Olam Haba. Teach you that there's another world. You have a dream, you think it's so real, then you wake up like, oh my gosh, it wasn't real. I thought it was, but it wasn't the real deal. You think this life is the real deal? And we get caught up in everything here with our Yetzer, our evil inclination, with our cool sunglasses and our Hawaiian shirts, whatever, and our shorts. I'm just kidding, right? We get caught up, we got our things, not cool. But the point is, what we have is we get all caught up in this world. Recognize it's not what it's about. And I just want to give you one last one. And that's the idea of, I'm going to say it differently than I'm writing it, a physical relationship. Figure out what the S stands for. A physical relationship. Socializing. What were you guys thinking? So you get the idea, right? Socializing with the opposite gender. Okay, let's say. So the person goes, what is the purpose of a physical relationship? Why do we yearn for it? Everybody wants it on some level. Everybody wants to have a connection, to feel something. Why? Same idea. That's the ultimate idea of tevekus. Like we said, to cleave. We want a physical relationship because the body is teaching, the soul wants that relationship. Start focusing on it. Start working on it. And when we start using the body for the soul, the body itself becomes holy. I'll tell you an amazing story. I first want to do a quick recap of everything we did. End up with one story. Then we'll take any questions, comments, stories, text. Here we go. So, we started beginning with one idea, and this is one verse comes mess up our whole life. We got to choose life. That in fact that we have life, that means you have choice. You have choice, you got responsibility. Okay, we got a little bit further. He says, what God says, I got you life, good, blessing, death, bad, curse. Choose life. What about choose good? What about choose blessing? Why tell me this isn't obvious? It's just blessing, just an outcome. Good, of course, everybody wants good. Even Hitler wants good, right? Ideas, whatever the end of the day, after life. Okay, so ideas, what? Why you got to tell me that? Because everybody's got the death button. Ideas, what? Do you want death? One shot or an installment plan. Halav, tinok, installment plan, right? It says, what are you talking about, an installment plan? It's a bag of milk, it's 4 shekel, but I don't got it, right? It says, what happens over here? Bottom line is, we all live in this idea. Do you want to kill yourself with one, God forbid, or do we do an installment plan? Or it goes, how much time do we waste today? Waste day. I'm just killing time. I say, what? Killing time? People die to have that. Hopefully not, but right, saying they want it so badly, we're going to just kill it? Come on, baby, what you got going on? Are you a body or soul? I hate you, chicken. And it says, which one are we people? We a body, we soul, which one do we associate? Just be honest about it. You could just go and say out straight, by the way, you should just know I'm a body and I associate more with animalistic than I do with human. Meow, right? So which one are I? We have this thing. Okay, that's it, a body. So choose life, understand the concept. That's why the body's always constantly going to the ground, soul's trying to go up, and we got this thing is over here. So guys, why did you create the nature in the first place? Why make this challenge for me? Why can't I just connect with you? Answer is without a Yetzer Tov, that Yetzer Hara. You don't have life. There's no choice. If I drive behind a cop, you don't have a good driver. And I see when there's no cop there. There's a cop in front of you. You can't see me and live. Do no puedes. You can't see me and live. It's just not possible. It's such a thing. Because as soon as you see me, you have no choice. When you have no choice, you have no life. Obviously, we want the choice. We want the challenge. Without the challenge, okay, let's say a person doesn't, out of fear, want to say yes. Still, you have a choice. It's still life. Ultimately, it's going to be living, growing. It's sort of fear. Then walking his ways and going to love. Walking his ways. The Vekas. That's the highest level we're trying to do. Okay, and when we see, we can learn from the body to the soul. Body comes along and goes to the bathroom. What happens? That's tshuva. Get rid of waste. We eat food. Torah, spiritual soul food. Dreams, olam haba. Socializing. Then we have the idea of what devekis, coming to the idea of ultimately to be connecting to God in the highest levels. And then, like we started in the beginning, when a person goes ahead and they start living in such a way where they're living for the soul, not for the body. They identify with the soul. then what do? Then what's the point of the body? The body is in order for us to be able to learn from it, to get to the soul, therefore use the body for soul things. And what happens when you do that? Amazing story. You can fill in the blank with a number of different people. I'll tell you when they heard about the Vilna Gaon. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman was a great, great sage. Lived from 1720, 1797, 1795, 1794. It's debatable. And when at one point in time they had to dig up his body. They had to. They decided to because they were making a highway. And when they dug up his body to move it, it was years after he had died. Years. At least a year. I think it was like 50 or 70 or 100, whatever, 100 years after he died. And they went to go move it. They opened up the grave and they found the body was completely intact. Completely intact, not decomposed at all. Down to the hairs in the beard. There was a little milk left. No, I'm just kidding. But down to the beard, everything intact. We know usually the body decomposes. But why does the body decompose? Because it's a physical substance, which is mainly physical. But a person who uses their body for spiritual, you literally elevate the body to a point where it can continue on itself. And that's what they find. A number of different rabbis where they've seen what happens when they exhume, they find that it's completely intact. So people, at the end of the day, the question we need to ask ourselves, and your homework for today and the rest of your life, is to ask yourself, are you a body or are you a soul? Which one do you identify with now? Which one would you like to identify? And then how can we get there? Any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks? Please keep them verbal and physical. It has been a placer. See you when I see you. If I don't, then I won't. Take care and que tenga un buen día.